Yeah,
You're live.
okay. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Finance Board meeting of Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. Meeting will begin at 6:34. So we'll have a short bench today. So I guess we'll start with the approval of the minutes, and I'm not sure, we have two sets of the same date.
Well, I read through the minutes dated October 15th, which was our last meeting,
Yes, which ones?
the ones that were prepared by Mark.
Okay, and
And as such, the
Adam
one-
sent out a set for the same
Okay.
date.
the ones that I read from Mark seem to be correct based upon what was captured in video through the recording. So those seem to be in line. I did not read the ones provided by Adam.
Right, Mark, you did a great job, I guess. So would you like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of Finance Board meeting on October 15th, 2025.
We have a motion, we have a second? I guess I'll have the second, because I was the only other one here, so I'll second the motion. Okay, any discussion? I guess we can only look at you, Brian, because
No,
you're the
no,
only one here.
I read through everything, and like I said, they all appear to be
Okay.
correct.
Seeing there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? None, and all those that need to abstain? Okay, so we're done with that. Again, this is a very short meeting. Typically, this time of year, we're not that busy. Beginning in January, we're going to be busier than wallpaper hanger in a tornado. So be prepared, it goes fast and furious if you're not already accustomed to it. The next item on the agenda, and I think Rebecca and I talked, there's not a lot, but she's going to update us on what she has. So, update from the town administrator. Take it away, Miss Rebecca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of items. As we discussed, I will be releasing the budget instructions for fiscal year 2027 on Monday, November 24th. That will go out to all of the departments. I also hold my bi-monthly team meeting with the department heads and other department staff on the last Tuesday of the month, every other month, and that happens to be the Tuesday following the release of the budget instructions. So at that particular meeting, I do intend to go over that document and also the new template forms that we will be providing for them to submit their budgetary request. And as we had discussed in the past, we are not going to be using ClearGov this year, so the new format will be a little bit reversed to what we had done originally, years past. So they will be given a Word document, and that Word document, they will be asked for their department mission, goals for the upcoming fiscal year, and then a brief narrative explaining what it is that they're requesting for their budget and if there's any changes or if there are any concerns at that point in time. In addition, they will also be provided with an Excel spreadsheet, and they will be able to put the line items and the amount they're requesting. It will also have their prior year's request for fiscal year 26, and it also has a pre-populated a formula in the cell to show the difference between fiscal year 26 and 27. Once that information is submitted, we will then assemble a requested budget packet that will be provided to the Finance Board and the Select Board, and it will just include the information from each individual department and what it is that they have put forward for their request. Budgets are going to be due on December 31st, as they typically are, and I hope to get that book out to the Finance Board and the Select Board in early January. I'm also working on the capital improvement plan. There were a few requests that came in a little after we had set the deadline date. There were a few things that popped up with highway. A truck had broken down, so we are looking to replace the truck. And then there were also some equipment requests, tasers over at the public safety building or with the police officers, as well as some camera upgrades that are necessary here in Town Hall. So we are taking into consideration those requests and putting them into the project group as a whole. And we hope to have the capital improvement plan finalized for early January, if not early February. But I am hopeful that it will be January. We did have a great conversation with Hilltop Securities about our ability to borrow. I know we had talked about potentially borrowing for the town hall complex roofs. here at Town Hall, the library, and public safety. And we also talked about the Town Hall complex electrical upgrades. So we did have a great conversation with them about how we could potentially structure that. So we're just looking to get our final information and our final numbers to them, and then we'll be able to kind of break those strategies down and figure out exactly how we want to move forward. But we did have a great conversation, and as we have discussed as a group as a whole, financially, we're looking great. We're actually looking better than we have in the past. So it is something that they believe that would be an attractive bond for those in the market that are looking to purchase. So we are happy to hear that we are doing well, and it's reflective in the numbers, and it will benefit us in the long run. But other than that, those are just my two updates that I have for the board, and like Bill said, it will be a busy winter.
Awesome. Let's start at this end. Brian, you have any questions for Ms. Rebecca?
No, my questions will be when we talk about the Pentucket schools, but no, but thank you.
She might not have a lot of answers for
No,
that.
no, I,
Mark?
No, it sounds like it's all coming together.
Melissa? Did they mention what the rate we might be able to borrow at?
They did not.
They did not. Did any kind of clue,
They didn't
3%,
specify.
2.5%, 4.5%?
No, they didn't talk about the percentage of bar. They're more so talking about like whether or not we do a ban versus a note, whether or not we combine and consolidate some of our existing debt, whether or not we could get a better rate if we did that. But we didn't necessarily talk about any of the rates at the meeting.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next up, I see I have a typo. Should have been 26, not 27. I'm a year ahead of myself, so I apologize for that. But we had talked about putting together basically a tentative schedule, proposed dates for the finance board meetings to meet with the departments. We thought it would be beneficial, we toss that out early in the year just to make sure that nobody would have any conflicts of interest, conflicts with dates, or conflicts with being able to make them. So I was planning on having one more meeting next month, but it'd be a short meeting, basically just to confirm the dates on this tentative schedule in case anybody has any conflicts with the dates. This will give us a month to look at them and say, I can't make that, can we switch that? And then we can try to be as flexible as we can with not only the department heads, but with the members of the committee here, so they can all, ensure that they can have their equal say and opportunity to participate. So that was really the only thing on that agenda item that I have. Just look it over, make sure everything is agreeable to you. Rebecca, I think, is going to pass that on to the department heads, make sure they don't have any conflicts with dates. And then hopefully we'll get together on, I think, the 19th of December, be one agenda item. This will be to solidify these dates, and then it will be Merry Christmas and go home and try to rest up for January.
17th, the third.
Is it the
Wednesday?
17th?
Yeah.
Yes, you're right, would be the 17th.
Okay.
Today's the 19th. Okay. Yep. That works for everybody. We can get another agenda item out of the way. I'm going to plan next meeting, December 17th, if that works for everybody.
yes.
Right.
Yep.
December
And-
17th at 6:30.
Considering that I only anticipate this one agenda item, why don't we make it 6 o'clock, get in and out? I don't think it'll take more than 10 minutes.
As long as you're here.
Yeah, I try to work from home on Wednesdays, and I made the mistake last time that it was 6:30 and not 6. And Jim, I'm surprised Jim didn't point it out to me when I texted him and said, I'll pick you up right at around 6,
So you want to do it at 6
send it.
o'clock?
Yeah, I'll, when I send out the other one, we'll do it for 6 o'clock, just get out
Okay.
early, so that Rebecca doesn't have to be here all night either, because I think it'll just be this one short.
And when will you provide us the schedule for the meetings going into next year? Before the 17th, so we can...
I think I
review it?
sent this out already.
All right,
sent that out,
I'll double check my email at home.
when you sent this to me, make sure I did. If you didn't get it, let me know. I'll send it out again. But I thought I attached it,
Okay.
but I'll do it again. And if nobody has any problems with it and it doesn't change, we'll make this hard. And we'll just vote on that and we'll be done with it. So that's all I have on that item. We took care of the plan the next agenda meeting, so now we can move on and recap of the prior night's Dog and Pony Show at the Pentucket Regional School District annual presentation. So, I think I'll start with Rebecca on your takeaway. What was your takeaway from that? Do you see, I guess my question is, do you see them trying to claw back a lot of the money that they had to scrap last year?
So I did not gather that at this particular juncture. The meeting really did focus on a state of the district as a whole. So we got to hear from the different areas within the school. So we got to hear from Dr. Conway, we got to hear from the special education teacher, we got to hear from the technology specialist, we got to hear from the business manager. So they just gave relative updates about where they are, what they've been able to accomplish over the last school year and where they find themselves now. We did have a unique presentation as part of this from a intern that's been working with the business manager to do a little bit of forecasting. That was actually something that originated with our town accountant. Our town accountant had approached me and said, you know, it would really be great while we're putting in our 5-year forecast to get a better understanding of where the school is, because DOR provided this template and it has the school, and you know, we don't really have the numbers other than what we see from DESI. So I had brought that to Dr. B, and they had an intern that was starting with them, and they kind of let them move with that so that they could figure out exactly if we could predict the trend over the next 5 years of what we could see our assessment growing at. And so he provided a presentation. It was very informative. There was a lot of information. It was over a 5-year outlook. And they have a lot of the same budget drivers that we do. I think the biggest ones, again, were health insurance and the retirement. Everything else was pretty much in line with what we've heard throughout the years. I think special education is obviously, again, another unknown and a cost driver for their budget. This particular year, with the adjustments they've had to make for fiscal year '26, they were able to provide some unique ways of generating revenue. They mentioned that's not really the name of their game, that's not what they're supposed to be doing, but because of the budgetary shortfalls, they found themselves in a position where they had to. They elected for school choice, they increased fees, and they were also able to renegotiate their transportation contract with Salter. And they did so very favorably, to the extent of, you know, saving themselves, I think it was over $100,000 from where they started when their contract was ending. So I thought that was great, but there is the offset of that, which is, or the downside of that, which is we receive state monies for transportation, and because our contract is so favorable, we might not receive as much money from the state for our transportation. So they are expecting that that might happen, and that will work against some of the good work that they've been able to accomplish. So I think what their predicted shortfall of a million came down to, again, I'm just calling from my head, which is not exactly a reliable source. When I saw it on the presentation, about $350,000 or so from the deficit. Brian was there, that's why I keep on looking at him.
Yeah, it's something like that.
But they were able to reduce it significantly to what they had originally estimated. So the one thing they also said is that the school choice was not as lucrative is the wrong word, but was not as helpful as they thought. They had only about 19 students that had participated, so
Yep.
what they had budgeted for that particular, what they had estimated for revenue for that wasn't as much. So that kind of, again, was a downside, but with the transportation contract, that kind of made up for it. So it looks like they are, again, looking to be more creative with ways to provide monies to alleviate some of the burdens from the communities. But during the presentation by the intern, it was, you know, 75% of their assessment is from the town, so they really do depend on the towns for that money in order to, move forward with their budget. So they didn't really give an insight as to what they're looking for fiscal year '27. They're in the process of gathering, like we are with our departments, and figuring out exactly what their needs are. They are looking to wait until, obviously, as we are as well, when the state comes out with their numbers, what that's going to look like in January. So they anticipate providing a budget to the school committee, I believe, end of January, beginning of February, and then they will have their hearing in March, and then they will be providing that information to the districts, the towns for their assessment. But again, and Brian can fill in where I can't, but it was more so of a recap and an overview of some of those specific accomplishments and what they've been doing. They did have one moment where they stopped the meeting and Dr. B testified in front of DESI for the Chapter 70 formula as part of one of those listening sessions, so that was quite interesting. But we all got to be a part of it on camera. But overall, again, it was more so the same as we've heard. Chapter 70, just not working for us. State, they're just not giving us enough money. And otherwise, Pentucket is thriving. The programs are doing well, the students are doing well, their scores are well, the fields are getting utilized, and they are trying to generate as much revenue as they possibly can to, again, offset the additional burdens of the community through their assessment.
Cool. All right. Let's start the comments or questions at this end of the table. Melissa, anything to add or wanna throw anything into that
I
soup?
had something and it has immediately escaped my brain.
Okay.
So if I think of it, I'll let you know.
Mark?
Do they talk about operations and maintenance at all? Or is it just really focused on programs?
They talked a little bit about facilities maintenance and that. They talked a little bit about what, we've been able to do from our capital improvement plan for the Bagnell. They talked about the facilities over at the Sweetser and Donahue, as well as the Page. They did mention that the Page is looking at potentially submitting a request to the MSBA for their elementary school. So that was a little interesting, but they didn't really necessarily talk about more other operation other than, what they're doing in their facilities for capital improvements.
Right. So no major outliers, at least as presented.
Not that I recall from that meeting.
Okay. Thanks.
Fine.
Excuse me. I guess first thing, will you be able to provide us the presentation that was provided at the meeting?
Yes.
Because when the intern had gone through his 9 points of interest, series 1,000 through 9,000, I concur with you that that information is very informative, very enlightening as to where the high points are at a macro level for those particular features that the school system needs to stay focused on. Specifically back to Mark's question, I'd be curious to know how they determined, because the town of Groveland has not had any determination from the water department, how they came up with a 20% increase to the water to their schools. So I'm just curious to know how they come about that. So I would ask, the next time you speak to them, if you could ask them that question, where did they come up with that number? I'd be curious to know. Besides getting the presentation, it's kind of an outlier and probably doesn't mean much of anything, but where costs are such a concern of the superintendent's office, it seems like, they had indicated during some of his dissertation to go to some of the plays and shows that they have out there that the kids participate in. My question is this: I know certain entities require you to pay for the use of their, in other words, if you were to do a Disney show, you need to pay Disney their rights. We're talking about a Shrek show and things like that. So I'm just curious to know, what does Pentucket pay to put those shows on? Because that generates revenue for them, therefore the property rights owner require payment. So I'm just curious to know what that would be, if you could find out. It's just kind of a curiosity on my part. Other than that, I thought the overall meeting went well. It was, like Rebecca had said, it was at a macro level, nothing really specific at this particular point. I agree with Rebecca that I think they were just kind of bringing us up to date as to the state of the Pentucket school system, where things are. I agree with her that, for the most part, they said it's pretty healthy. Things are moving along pretty good. But as usual, I'm kind of a little biased in some ways. I think some of the costs are just way out of whack. And there should be a way for us to find a way to control them, besides the fact that the state needs to step up and pay for their part also. But that's all I got really to say, so thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good luck with the state getting to pay up with their part. Never gonna it hasn't happened in all the years I've been here. I don't see it happening anytime soon. Again, it comes down to simple numbers. We just don't have the representation in Beacon Hill required to shove enough money this way. It all ends up in the biggest cities in the state because they have the greatest numbers of representatives in Beacon Hill. So when the pie gets sliced up, the guys who have the biggest hands get the biggest chunks. It's terrible. It's
I mean,
a lousy way, and you know what? The other thing is, unfortunately, we're viewed as a very affluent community. Like it or not, Pentucket is viewed as an affluent community, and because of that, we don't get the funding that some of the inner cities or the bigger cities, Fall River, Boston, Springfield, Brockton, would normally get, just because of our geographic location. It's just a fact of life that we've had to deal with for year after year after year after decade.
Well, I guess just to add to that, one positive note that I will extend to the superintendent's office is the fact that when the superintendent was speaking online to the Chapter 70 people, he was very forthcoming in trying to make it clear to them, because he represents a whole bunch of other communities in Essex County, that, the formulas that they use are completely biased, and they need to recalculate them. How that happens, how it goes about, that's, way above my knowledge base, so I would be lying if I tell people what to do. I could have a couple of answers on how to make it happen faster, but that's a whole nother story for a different day. But I think overall, his position came across quite clear, and hopefully we can get some traction with that and help us out.
Yeah, it'd be
So-
nice. Kind of like Prop 2.5 is well-intentioned, just, not well thought out in the long run, and how it really restricts towns and cities' abilities to generate revenue when needed during crunch time. But anyways, one thing you'd mentioned, Page School, MSBA, are they looking to fund that? That's on West Newbury's dime? That's not gonna be a regional thing, right?
From my understanding, they didn't really get into it, but I would imagine they'd have to do a feasibility study of some sort. I'm not sure if that would include a regional component or whether or not it would just be for their site specifically. I'm not sure what they would require or where they are in that process.
In the past, when we did the addition at Bagnell, I don't recall that any of the costs were borne by the district, were they? Or were they
No,
all-
so if it's any improvements to the school itself, it would not be a cost that we would have to share at all.
Okay, but a new building,
Again, a new building would also be under theirs. If it's their elementary school, it's their cost.
okay, yeah, all right, just making sure.
Unless they decide to regionalize elementary schools.
Yeah, West Newbury's gotta be flush with cash. We just built a brand-new middle high school, and now they're talking about building a new elementary school. We gotta build a tunnel over to their, to their safe. Something, they get too much money over there. They should share it with us.
Well, they are a rich town.
Not according to the formula, we're richer than they are,
Well,
according to the formula.
Isn't that a funny thing, how all of a sudden we have more money than they do?
No, it's not a funny thing, and it's been that way for years, and nobody can explain to me at all how that is so, but, okay. It has to do with medium income and I don't know. Got me. Anyways, any other comments on that?
I just remembered my question.
Ray, go.
There we go. Rebecca, in terms of, you mentioned that the budget would be presented to the school committee, the January, February timeframe, voting in March. I assume there'll be something similar to what they have done in the past, where we'll all be invited in to talk a little bit more.
I believe so. I just looked at my notes, and it looks like it, what I took for notes, which was not great notes, but February 3rd, the budget would be released. February 24th, there would be a public hearing, and then March 10th, the package would be released to the town. And I imagine somewhere in between there, we would, or right after there, we would have that joint meeting that we have all together, where they discuss the budget and the specifics.
Okay.
Anything else? Mark, Brian?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to the next meeting. Next item, we already planned the next meeting for December 17th at 6 o'clock, correct?
Yes?
All right, and are there any other items not reasonably anticipated at time of posting? Brian, you're up. Anything?
No, sir, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mark?
I just have one question related to the government shutdown. I know it's reopened, but do you foresee, money's been slow to move, and I don't know how that ripples into the educational system and the towns, but is there any ripple effect that's anticipated from that?
So from a local perspective that what we've seen, we haven't necessarily seen much of an impact. There has been a little bit of an impact in terms of any grants that we receive from the EPA or any earmarks or any of that additional funding. For example, we received an earmark of close to $1 million from Congressman Moulton's office, and that was supposed to go towards the water improvement or infrastructure improvements on a couple of the ways that we had listed it and identified as problematic. And so we received an email from the EPA that they were shut down and they were no longer able to expend those funds and that we had to stop. So we're kind of like, okay, so does that impact our operation? Not necessarily, but it's not a great deal that now we were almost guaranteed $1 million and now we don't have that $1 million. From a school's perspective, we did ask that question last night outside in a conversation, and other urban districts are feeling a lot more of the pressure from the federal government in terms of their funding, but for the Pentucket Regional School District, there really hasn't really hasn't been much of an impact. Title I with reading, that's something that's funded, so they've seen a little bit of a minimal impact, but nothing substantial. My biggest concern when I look at it is not necessarily what we receive from the federal government, it's what the state receives from the federal government. So when we're looking at our budget for fiscal year 27, I'm very concerned about the impact of what that's going to mean for our local aid, our local programming, our grants, our funding, and what the state's going to do in order to recap any of the monies that they're losing from what's happening at the federal level. That's when I really do think that the trickle down, we're really going to start to feel that.
Sure. That's good that it's not bad yet. I know just across other industries like the DoD, they've sort of done funny things with using the wrong color money in certain places like to pay troops, and it's impacting other budgets, and I'm sure that's happening across all sectors to some degree. And we're just very mindful that there could be another shutdown in January that really compound this whole issue, especially where they are so slow to ramp back up to get these processes going and these monies back on the wire. So stay tuned, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, especially when the shutdowns last so long, and I think you're right. I think based on where both parties are currently entrenched, I would, if I was a betting man, I would run to Vegas right now and bet that there will be another one in January when this agreement runs out.
Yeah, we're watching it very closely.
Everybody is, because, it really ripples through all the economy. It doesn't just affect federal workers, it affects, the barber shops and the restaurants and the breakfast joints that they patronize when they're working, and that affects the guy that goes to the dry cleaners. It ripples through, it costs, what do they estimate, billions.
Yep.
So it's not good for anybody, let's face it. Sucks.
Sucks.
Melissa?
I don't have anything else.
Okay, I try to get the agenda out early, and I really want to give you guys opportunities to, if you don't see something on the agenda that you'd like to have, toss it at me, and I'll put it down there, Listen, it's a free country, right? Well, it is so now, right? So, take the opportunity. I try to give everybody as much opportunity as they can to have as much voice in this as possible. The louder your voice, the more it gets done. So,
I do have one quick question, Mr. Chair. if I may.
No, it's no question Wednesday. Sorry,
Yeah,
you had
just
your
one quick
time.
question.
Blew it.
Rebecca, it's really for you. Any update status on the water department as far as the treatment plant? Any forward motion on that that you're aware of, or?
No, I have not heard
Nothing
any updates as of
Okay,
date.
okay, thank you. I have nothing else, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, you know, as I've gone through towns, I've noticed this really neat thing they've been doing with the banners of veterans. Have you noticed that? Is there any plans to commemorate some of the veterans in Groveland with some of those things?
So we've been working closely with our veterans agent on different
This
ways.
is way
that
off
we can-
topic, I'm sorry.
that we can definitely add, incorporate different things within the community. As you'll see, we are now a Purple Heart community, so those signs recently went up. There is an additional, I believe it's NASA. There's a different branch that's also been added to the military, and so we are also looking to add that to our memorials. But we haven't necessarily gone towards the banners yet. I'm not sure exactly how many veterans we have in town or what the cost is associated with such, or whether or not there's a budget for that. But I do know that the veterans agent has been working on different ways to be more relevant in the community, so it's definitely something that I can bring up to them.
Cool. All right. I think that was the only thing I had, not anticipated. If there's nothing else,
Do we want
No.
a motion to adjourn?
yeah, that's what I'm looking for, I
7:05?
guess.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time and efforts.